What's the hardest thing you've ever had to do?
I think the hardest thing I've ever had to do was I think it was debate, and that turned into a real strength. But I remember that I joined debate as a middle schooler, and we were supposed to speak for 5 minutes. I was so deathly nervous. I got up there, I spoke for 30 seconds, and I got off the podium. So that was probably the hardest thing I had to do. I had to build that up and learn how to speak confidently in front of people. So what I did was I number one started speaking to myself in front of the mirror. So I just pick a random topic, and at home every single day I get better and better and better, and I just speak to the mirror about that topic. And then I start when I felt comfortable. I spoke to in front of my parents and then my friends, and I translated that into being able to speak in front of small audiences and then larger audiences for debate. And that turned into a real strength. Debate is now one of my strongest activities, and it's something I really enjoyed. So I think that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do. It was so daunting to me. I remember walking up as like a 13-year-old onto that stage, but through continuous practice, I got better and better and better, and now it's a real strength.
Yeah. This is a fine example. I think like again, I will follow the framework more closely. Like
Yeah, I didn't have a one. Yeah,
the last part of that, you kind of started to repeat yourself, right?
right.
You talked, you went back to talking about like how hard it was. That part you already kind of talked about up in the problem section, right? And then you just kept saying it turned into real strength, turn into real strength, turn into real strength. Then like what you didn't talk about is like after the positive result, like what is the key takeaway? Like what did you learn from this?
Right. Okay.
Right. So we give you guys these frameworks for really, really good reasons, like to help you stay organized. And even if it's a question that maybe you weren't expecting, you have to kind of like come up with something on the spot and just answer it, like it'll give you like a straw man for like how to just improv on the spot, because you know what the next point in the framework is, right? Situation, problem, action, results, key takeaways. Situation, problem, action, results, key takeaways. Like just stick to that, and then you won't like ramble, right? The other thing is, I think if I could tell, like weren't really expecting this question, so you like had to like think of one on the spot.
Yeah,
you kind of just rushed into answering this question. Like a lot of times people have this urge of like, as soon as they ask the question, like, oh, I gotta start answering, right? So then you immediately said, yeah, I think the hardest thing I ever had to do is debate. And you just like put on debate, and like whether it's like a good example or not. Instead, what I would rather you do is like, don't get sped up, right? Like if they ask you a question that you're not really expecting, you don't have a great answer. Like again, this is part of like staying composed. I would rather you say, that's an really interesting question. I haven't thought of that before. Let me think about that for a second. Or like, is it okay if I think about that for a second? You can ask for permission, right? And then like the MD's gonna be like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Now you just buy yourself like maybe 30 seconds of silence or whatever, where you can just like, okay, think through all your past experiences. Like, what would be a good example? Well, okay, maybe debate. Like, is there anything better? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, right? Okay, can't come up with any better. All right, let me do debate. Or like, even during that time, you come up with an answer, like you can start outlining in your head before you start answering. It's like SPARK, like what are the points I want to make for each of these? Okay, now you have a mental outline. Now you start answering the question. Okay, I have one. So actually one of the hardest things I've ever had to do is learn how to debate. And then you go into your answer, right? That's the situation. It's like the problem, blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense? So like, just don't feel like you have to rush into the answer when you're not ready.
Okay.
Rather like take a little bit more time and give a better and more organized and more thoughtful answer. Does that make sense?
It does.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're looking for more customized advice that's tailored for your specific situation, then I invite you to book a free strategy session with our team at the link below. We'll talk to you soon.